we now come to this whole issue of bail-in. So I don't know how many of you remember, but in 2017, this bill was introduced in Parliament. It was called the Financial FRDI Bill, Financial Resolution and Deposit Insurance Bill. And that's a time when every day the papers were full of bad loans of banks, which had gone up to 10 lakh crore. And there was real panic that even public sector banks may, if they fail, and the biggest losses were in public sector banks. So there was a serious worry that government would pass this bill and there would be a bail-in clause that kicks in. Now, what does bail-in mean? All over the world after the 2008 global crisis, where the US government and the Federal Reserve stepped in and bailed out a whole bunch of institutions, insurance companies, private banks, they said, no, this can't go on because we can't use taxpayers' money to bail out X or Y private entity. So they say that private entity should find a way to bail itself out. How is it going to do it? By taking depositors' money. At that time, the US government actually has made a profit on the money that they invested in these banks because they earned a higher return when the system was sort of saved by doing these bailouts. But the G20 met and said each one should have a new law which says that you will use depositors' money by converting it into equity, which will be used to recapitalize the bank so that the bank can continue to function. Now, banks need to have a certain amount of capital if they are allowed to borrow, have your deposits, and lend. So, capital adequacy is all about having that equity capital. So they said your deposits will be converted into equity. The minute they said this is going to happen in India, obviously all of us panicked. Because like I said, we used to say, Sarkari bank hai, you don't have to worry. The biggest losses were in Sarkari banks. The government did not bother to tell us, does this apply to everybody? Will it apply only to private banks? How can you have a national bill which will apply only to one section of banks? So there was complete panic. Government did not give any assurances, any details, except to say there's nothing to worry about. By August 2018, 1 year after the bill was introduced to the Lok Sabha, there was so much of chaos that they quietly withdrew it and they said, we will rework it and reintroduce it. Okay, so it was not going away. They just said, we're going to come back. They admitted there are some mistakes. Now, one of the couple of things that we found wrong at that time was that, you have cooperative banks which are not properly regulated. What happens? Do you do a bail-in? In fact, what is happening with PMC and others is a bail-in of sorts without asking you, because they're not giving your money back, right? What happened? I mean, this is the fact that they're under dual regulation is out of your control, but you have to bear the consequences. The same thing with public sector banks. We are not like the rest of the world. We have a nationalized banking system. So why do we need an FRDI bill at all, was the question that many of us asked. But government had no answers. Like I said, 10 lakh crore was the losses. In just 5 years alone, bank losses have been so huge that 3 lakh crore has been pumped in by the government. I mean, think about it. You read about farmer suicides all the time, and every economist will say, don't waive farm loans. But about 200 large industrialists have walloped tens of thousands of crores from the Indian banking system. And who pays for it? Not just all of us who have bank accounts. Even the poorest man on the street who hasn't seen the inside of a bank. Because when the money goes straight from the exchequer, it is money that has to be used for development, for infrastructure, for providing you all the amenities that is going to these banks, and essentially to pay back industrialists who have looted it over a period of time, completely hand in glove with politicians. So our anger about the bill stems from the fact that we are paying for this loot without accountability. Now, this is, Moneylife alone has reported about this Financial Sector Development and Regulation Bill, because I have a copy of it from somewhere. It is marked secret all over. There's a 30-page secret note which is signed by Atanu Chakravarti, who's the Economic Affairs Secretary. And now, is it all bad? No, not at all. Do we need financial resolution? Yes, we do. Now, what do I mean by financial resolution? It means that if something goes wrong, you need to find find a way to resolve it without it languishing in 50 courts with enforcement agencies saying we have first claim. Look at PMC Bank as an example, okay? Income tax saying no, they haven't paid tax, our claim comes first. Then some other creditor will say we've got guarantees, we've got assurances, we've got an LC, we will come first. So there are, every time there is a failure of a corporate house, there are 20 to 30 people who will file litigation, who will hire top lawyers, who will look at various ways in which different laws can be used to challenge things. Investigation agencies will also jump in. You'll have the economic offenses, you'll have enforcement, you'll have DRI saying they did something else, you'll have someone saying they did money laundering. There is no resolution. Okay, so it just languishes sometimes for 20 to 30 years, and you like look at ILFS. In 1 year, they have not made much headway in selling anything but one small set of wind energy assets. So you need a system which will talk about, like the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. This is going to be meant for financial companies, banks, they say insurance companies, and anybody who is declared as systemically important, which means large NBFCs like Diwan Housing, ILFS, maybe even some stock exchanges and depositories may be included. It's going to cover a whole bunch of legislation, because the primacy will be to what is going to be called a resolution authority. So they're going to create a body which is called the resolution authority. Even the deposit insurance is going to be moved to that authority, and everything will be done through it like it is done under the bankruptcy code. So do we need it? They say there's a systemic vacuum, you're not able to solve financial problems. We all agree that you can't have things languishing, it has to be decided in a year or two. So this bill provides that it has to be resolved by the resolution authority in a period of 1 year. They know this 1 year is itself unrealistic, because the bankruptcy code said 270 days and it doesn't happen in 270 days. We know it goes on for longer than that. So here they've said 1 year plus 1 more year. And I guess that 1 year plus 1 has happened because it's already 15 months since ILFS's board was sacked last October, and they have managed to sell one set of small assets. In fact, ILFS is one of the reasons why they say we need a resolution authority. So are we against this bill? No, we are not. Some parts of the bill are good, they are needed. Some of the things that they're going to do is bring a lot of people, like ILFS, a holding company, will be under it. Now, let me talk about what is the problem. So there's a specialized mechanism to resolve it. So key features are these. It's fixing the holes in the current legislation. Each systemically important company is going to be graded into 5 different, it's like a heat map. So there'll be green, amber, and red, but divided into 5. The last 2 are imminent and critical. So when it is reaching a danger zone, the resolution authority steps in. In the first stage, it can stop them from doing business, put some curbs on it. In the second stage, sack the board, appoint a receiver, and do other things. So the resolution authority kicks in. The problem with them is, what they're saying in this secret note is that we've finally got rid of the bail-in provision. Okay? Unfortunately, it's a pack of lies, because this is what the note says. The much criticized bail-in provision has been removed, and instead the resolution authority will be empowered to cancel or modify liabilities subject to safeguards. The insured deposits will not be cancelled or modified. Okay? Now let's analyze what this means. First of all, insured deposits would not be cancelled or modified is big deal. This is how it is all over the world. Okay? So all over the world they have said a minimum threshold of deposits which are covered by deposit insurance will not be touched. It was the same in the previous bill, it will be the same here. They say they are going to increase it, but it's the same, so there is no difference. Now they say the resolution authority can cancel or modify liabilities. What is a liability? Your deposit is a liability. Okay, so the bank has a liability to repay your deposit. So they say they can cancel it, which means they can cancel the liability to repay you. It's the same as bail-in. They can modify it, which means that they can convert your deposit into equity, which means it's the same as the bail-in provision that we were worried about. They're just being too clever by half and wording it differently and trying to say that it has been removed. I mean, we get really tired of the fact that everything is always a lie and it's fudging of facts, and they think that all of us are morons and we don't understand it. So this is part one, okay? The other thing that the note says, and this note is important because this is what is going to go to the cabinet, and this is the basis on which this bill is probably going to be introduced in Parliament. So they say simultaneously a decision to increase deposit insurance from 1 lakh to a higher amount may be taken, and that increased amount would be the floor for deposit insurance. The resolution authority will have the power to modify this deposit insurance limit. Now, this is so crazy. This entire paragraph is just mind-boggling in how weird it is. Now, for the first reason is that deposit insurance, any insurance is an actuarial science, okay, based on the law of probability, based on demands, based on the premium collected, and all of it is done by high level of mathematics to come to a decision on how much of premium should be collected for what amount of liability, and you all know this, right? So if I decide that I want a 1 crore life insurance, depending on, because I want 1 crore, I'll be paying a certain amount of premium, which is calculated based on my age, based on my maybe health profile or whatever. So there is a science behind it, and it is decided without even telling us whether 1 lakh will become 2 lakhs, 5 lakhs, or as some media houses are speculating, 15 lakhs. There's a bland line like this saying it may be increased. We have to know how much, because everything else, including the safety of your deposits, the cost of your deposit, depends on how much that is and what is it that you're going to pay. So it's impossible to have it as vague as this, and they will have the power to modify this. This is so alarming because, you can't, like I said, it's an actuarial science. You can't decide that, oh, PMC Bank, oh my God, they are very politically powerful, so inko 10 lakh dete hain. So you guys are City Cooperative Bank, so small number of people affected, unko rone do, we'll give them 5 lakhs. Can this be done? It has to be standard because the premium is going to be collected on that basis, right? So how does a line like this even make sense? We don't know. There are no explanations. This government doesn't believe in explanations. So look at the picture, okay? Now, the largest number of banks in the Indian banking system are cooperative banks, shocking as it may seem, because all of us look at public sector banks with thousands and thousands of branches, or we look at an ICICI and Axis Bank because they have so many branches. We think they are, in number it is one bank, right? So the largest number of banks are cooperative banks at 1949. They used to be over 2,100. Like I say, they keep failing at the rate of 1 a month, so it's come down. Plus 56 regional rural banks and 3 local area banks. Why is this number important? Because when you pay a deposit insurance, it's all clubbed together. These are the risky banks. The numbers are more. In the last 25, 30 or 50 years, they go back to 1961 incidentally, because they want to bring Nehru in the picture, right? So this government goes back all the time to 1961, not even the year of bank nationalization. So in all these years, the banks that have failed the most are these cooperative banks, right? And they say cooperative banks will pay risk-based premium. Now, if they are more risky and they pay risk-based premium, that means they're going to pay a much higher premium. So even on the 1 lakh which is insured today, their premium should be significantly higher. If it is 5 lakhs, which is 5 times, and it's risk-based, can you imagine how high the premium would be for these banks? Now, can they afford it? Most of them are doddering. Can they even afford to pay the premium? We don't know. Now, what we would have liked when this bill is done is to do an exercise saying we will increase deposit insurance from, say, 1 lakh to 5 lakh. This will mean risk-based premium of cooperative banks depending on the size. So maybe a Saraswat bank would pay very little, somebody else would pay more. Do a calculation and tell us what it means. Is it viable? A former chairman of a PSU bank tells me that it is completely unviable for two reasons. First of all, today deposit insurance works well because they collect insurance from everybody based on the total number of deposits. So look at it. You may have 50 lakhs or a crore in your bank account. If something goes wrong, they're going to give you 1 lakh. But the premium is collected on your behalf on the whole 1 crore. But their liability is only 1 lakh. Right? So this is how they're going to collect it from everyone. So they're sitting on, the Deposit Insurance Guarantee Corporation is sitting on 91,000 crore. It's very comfortable because PSU banks don't fail, they're Sarkari banks. They don't ever have to pay for them. Private banks have not failed. Only in the last 25 years since economic liberalization, we've had two examples. One was Global Trust Bank, which was force merged with Oriental Bank of Commerce. The second was United Western Bank. Now, if this is done, I'm going to come up with some numbers. But the amounts involved will be huge if bailouts have to happen. They have not happened because you have a PSU banking system. You hold a gun to their head, you say merge, you make some bank take responsibility. That cannot continue with this bill, right? So will that continue or not? What will be the status of PSU banks? What is going to be the status of cooperative banks? Why do we put our money in cooperative banks? Most people will tell you because they give you 1 to 2% more interest, isn't it? If they're going to pay much more for deposit insurance, they will not be able to give you that higher interest. If they're not going to give you higher interest, you will not put your money there. If you don't put your money there, that business model fails, right? So maybe the number of banks will cease to exist. RBI is now telling them convert into small finance banks first and then grow into scheduled banks. But it's a process. Only one bank has just agreed to become a small finance bank, but the law will come first. So when the law comes, we want to know the implications for our money. We don't want to sort of wait and see how it will unravel, what kind of patchwork solutions are found. And on something as basic as deposit insurance, you need some homework done, because how many banks exist? What is their financial condition is all known to the RBI. Everyone submits annual reports. So why can't you do an actuarial calculation and tell us that this is what the deposit insurance will increase to, this is the amount of premium that will be collected. It's like I told you, it's collected on 100% of deposits. The All India Bank Employees Association has already objected to it. Not that the government is going to listen to them, but they've said, why will you collect on all the deposits, and why will you collect from us public sector banks in the first place? Because we are never going to fail. Okay, so you should, in fact, the government actually should not be collecting money from them because they're not going to fail. And this is a double whammy. The Deposit Insurance Corporation is sitting with their money, which goes to cooperative banks, but they don't fail. On the other hand, they actually fail because the exchequer is, putting, like I said, 3 lakh crore in the last 5 years alone. So public money is going all the time to recapitalize these banks, but they don't fail. So there's never a question of paying deposit insurance for them. But this entire mess has been going on from 1961. Nobody has corrected it. Nobody wants to correct it. We didn't mind because it didn't really affect us. But today we do mind because now you're threatening to convert our deposits into equity. So we need to wake up now, right? So what went on till 1961, we couldn't be bothered about. But today we have to worry. So where cooperative banks are concerned, one or two good things which are in the pipeline is that the RBI did not have powers, is what this bill says. So there's going to be a separate bill which will make RBI the single point regulator. Like I said, we have to see what happens. They're going to be converted into small finance banks. All this should be done with before this bill is introduced. That's not what is happening. Now, private banks is another area of worry, okay? Because like I said, Yes Bank is a test case. You had serious issues in ICICI Bank. That Chanda Kochhar issue is still going on, okay? Two banks that have failed. Do you know the cost of having merged United Western Bank with IDBI Bank? They force merged it. IDBI Bank itself is doddering. It's under prompt corrective action. So IDBI Bank had to be bailed out. So they got Life Insurance Corporation to bail it out by taking 51%. When LIC was going to invest just 9,000 crore, everybody said, why are you, using people's money, which is our money? We buy insurance. That's why LIC exists. You're using it to buy a failing bank. It doesn't make sense. Do you know that LIC has now invested 21,624 crores in this bank? Government of India has also put in money. The total amount put by Government of India and LIC into IDBI Bank is 42,781 crore. Just think of the kind of money we are talking about just on bank bailouts. And they want to stop doing this because they said they don't want to. So they want to take our money by converting it. Now, Yes Bank is in trouble. United Western Bank was a small bank. IDBI also was a relatively small bank. Yes Bank is far bigger. It's the fourth largest private bank. If this bank has to be bailed out, we don't know what the cost of it is going to be. So the reaction to it is silence. Don't say anything. Yes Bank is putting out press releases saying, we firmly assure you that there's nothing wrong. But time after time, they're holding board meetings, people are resigning, people are demanding forensic audit, people are accusing. This is their board directors. This is not people outside, right? And they are not able to raise good quality money because people who are asking assurances from the bank are not getting it in writing. And so they say, we don't know what's going on over there. So that's a test case. I personally feel that with all these holes in the bill, as well as the current situation, if the bill is introduced in the budget session, which a lot of people think it will happen, then we are in for another period of panic, because two things that you need to remember is that this resolution authority under the new bill is going to include all the financial regulators. Now, our view in Moneylife is that all the financial regulators have failed to do their job. They have not monitored what mutual fund trustees are doing. They have not looked at what credit rating agencies are doing. RBI has failed in bank supervision. So you bring them in, becoming part of the bureaucracy. So instead of the resolution authority or anybody demanding accountability from the regulators, you will continue to post retired bureaucrats for 3 and 5 years over there, post retirement. They will have no accountability. You will have another big bureaucracy, and I don't mind what they're doing, but there's a huge cost involved which comes from the Government of India, and this bill is draconian because it for the first time threatens to take our savings. So today we have to speak up and ask what's going on. There's no detailed exercise on insurance, and there is just one throwaway line over there which says that PSB resolution will happen. Now, if you asked me about LIC, and I said it's sovereign. So according to me, there's no question of PSB resolution. You will either privatize these banks, or you will shut them down, or you will sell them. What resolution? Does it mean PSBs will fail when they are government organizations? What is the meaning of a sentence like PSB resolution? We don't know. So I think there are lots of holes in this bill. It's as yet a secret. Let's just hope that all these questions are asked and answered. So the final question that you would ask is, did they discuss it with anybody? So you want to know who they discussed it? Definitely not with us, the people who are the largest stakeholders. They've not discussed it with bank unions, but they've discussed it with Tribal Affairs Ministry, and they've discussed it with Corporate Affairs, Social Justice and Empowerment. I don't even schedule castes and tribes. Are these people going to talk about deposit insurance in any meaningful way in the discussions? I don't know what these discussions were, but they very smartly say these are the people, not us, who are going to be most affected. So I'm going to end over here. There are details about the bill, but I don't think most of you are going to be involved in what is the resolution authority, how is it going to be funded, what is the structure. I've got a lot of that.